Hey guys, Corey Hedden from Free Play here. A couple weeks ago, we were at an auction and we saw a bunch of fake games. And some of y'all asked, hey, has Free Play ever bought a fake game? And the answer is yes. We've had one or two that have snuck by, but this one right here, and we have the original buying footage, The Adventures of Robby Roto. We bought it in an auction, and we had seen this same game before previously, and we know it because it's a pretty rare game. I think they only made about 2,000 units total, including stand-ups, cabarets, and cocktails. So we saw this Adventures of Robby Roto cocktail come up for sale, and it went a little bit expensive the first time we saw it, so we didn't buy it. But we did all of our kind of investigation, checked it out, and it looked totally legit. It came to the next auction, and we didn't do any investigation. We said, wow, it's kind of strange to see two of them pop up, but I bet it's the same one. And then we looked at it and we're like, yeah, this is definitely the same one. We moved on. Didn't do any more investigating. And I ended up buying it for $550, which I remarked at the time was like $300 or $400 less than it sold before. I was like, so it's a great deal. But the other buyers, they might have known something that I didn't because they've been paying attention. This is an emulated Adventures of Robby Roto. So we're gonna kind of walk you through what we should have caught, why we didn't catch it, kind of show you how bad emulation can be, especially on a game like Adventures of Robby Roto. When it gets more obscure, fewer people have taken any time or care to make it good. So first we're gonna turn this one off. We're gonna go plug it back in so that you can see the most obvious thing that we missed at the auction. All right, so I just plugged this unit in. And this is it. This is the most telltale sign that we should have known. This is just a Game Elf, a knockoff Chinese-made emulation board that has a ton of games on it. I don't know which one this has because we haven't actually seen, but normally like 1,000 games on these Game Elves, including apparently The Adventures of Robby Roto, which I also didn't know that because I haven't been paying enough attention to the recent Game Elf releases. But if you saw that screen just right there, you would know this is totally 100% fake. But if you watch this screen, it might be a lot harder to identify, especially if, like in our case, we kind of investigated before and thought it was the same game, thought it was the same board, but clearly it wasn't. So we haven't been inside this yet. And if you're watching this, some of the monitor, you might, and it's probably even harder to see on the camera, if you really paid attention to that opening screen, you might be able to see that the pixels don't quite look how they're supposed to, but it is on a real CRT. It has some of the same like normal CRT issues that you see on real old games, because I assume this is the original CRT, or at least period CRT. You've got some bowing, you've got some discoloration, some magnetic interference. So looking at this right here, especially with a game like Adventures of Robby Roto, which to be honest, I have not played a ton, you would see that, you know, this could be what it's supposed to look like. But it's not. So next up, we're going to drill into this, see how they did the installation of the emulation board, which, you know, some of y'all are going to watch this and say, this emulation board, this is worth it, like $100, $200. The bigger problem is now we have to find a real Robby Roto PCB that's not already in a cabinet, which with that limited manufacturing in a game that wasn't super popular like Robby Roto, it's going to be tough. So let's get to drilling. So you'll recognize this is just a generic Bally Midway cocktail cabinet, same one or similar one that they used on Miss Pack and Galaga and all of those. Kind of unique because it's most of the other cocktails that were popular at the time were longer widthwise, and they'd have people sitting across. These were actually longer kind of with their length, so you could fit more in a smaller area. Pretty nice, pretty cool. Now I'm going to try to drill this lock. One thing to know, normally, if you watch YouTube and you watch the videos on how to drill locks, they'll say kind of start small, work your way up. We're gonna see. I'm gonna try actually a larger bit because I'm being lazy. If this video now has like a 80, 90 second montage of me changing bits 100 times and trying to drill, it's because my strategy didn't work, but we'll see how it goes. And yes, if you're watching this at home, make sure you wear, if you're doing something like this, this is kind of, you know, my more redneck operator side of my family. Make sure you wear eye protection, make sure you take a lot more precautions, wear some gloves. These are metal shavings I'm shooting off everywhere. So I do have glasses on. It's just about as safe as I'm gonna get, but if you're doing it at home, use all the proper precautions. All right, so I've hit the metal base plate, which is good. We're almost there. I just realized I left the game on, and especially if you're drilling into a cocktail, the monitor is right behind here. Lots of power, lots of electricity. Just in case it gives and my drill goes all the way through, I'm gonna go unplug the unit. Should have done that to start. There we go, guys. Worked out a lot better than some of them have. Fortunately, it looks like it was a modern lock that had replaced the original lock. The original locks on all of these cabinets were beasts. Nowadays, things are produced a lot cheaper, a lot worse, and it popped pretty easy. So we are in. All right, guys. So as you saw, we just drilled the lock to this Adventures of Robby Roto. Popped it. This is the first time we've popped it open. First time we've looked in it since we took it off the auction floor. And one of the things I'm sure we're going to find out really quick is if we had coin door access, which we didn't at the auction. It was locked by the operator. We probably would have been able to identify some telltale signs a lot faster. But again, we didn't even look inside this. We didn't check anything. We had already seen it. So this is one of those classic midway cocktails. So you're going to see the whole monitor come up with the on the hinge, which is kind of a weird design. But here we go. All right, so we've opened it up. I really should have put a blanket down there before I set that tempered glass onto the concrete, but I'm angry, I'm mad. They cheated me out of money, so I'm checking this out. All right, as you can see right away, this is not at all what it's supposed to look like. And maybe the biggest telltale sign is all the different, besides the fact that this is not an Adventures of Robby Roto game board. Adventures of Robby Roto kind of came off in that same generation as like Gorf, and a few other of those midway games that were kind of the transition games that were really, really complicated board stacks. So here we go. This is a Game Elf. It looks like it's, yeah, they've got one screw holding it in. It is just, and there's a bunch of, Mandarin characters or something, because it's just a Chinese cheap JAMA conversion. And as you can see, and I know why it looks like this, they probably ripped the board and the entire harness that used to be in here out. Because even these harnesses at this point, though you can rebuild them, an original Robby Roto harness is worth a lot of money. So here you can see it's all new wiring, all new everything, to what looks like an original joystick, original button, but definitely just all hacked up. Nothing original. Got a switching power supply right there. Now, I will say, not happily, that the person that did this work seems like they know what they were doing. The bundles are great. It's not just a total rat's nest of wires or anything. Here, if we would have been able to open up this, we would have immediately seen, well, everything. So you can see why the operator had left it locked and everything. But yeah, they got us a Game Elf. We'll get a screwdriver. We'll pull this board out. I'll show you kind of how it looks, and we'll also turn on the game to show you how it looked when we bought it. Looks like we've got a 4600 monitor in here. So yeah, that's the original monitor that could have come on this unit. It's definitely period appropriate. And that's probably a great selling point because it warps and distorts what is definitely an all digital display coming out of that game board. So this is what we were left with. Wow. Definitely if I saw the inside of it, I never would have bought it because it's probably harder at this point to get a Robby Roto PCB than it is just to buy a whole new arcade. But we are on a mission. So if you happen to watch this and you're like, hey, I have this fully working Robby Roto PCB sitting around, shoot me an email, Corey@FreePlayInc. I'll be interested because I also have to get rebuilding on an entire harness. So that's the other thing. It would have been kind of bad to open this and see a hacked up harness, but we could have repaired that original harness, got it back and running. We're gonna have to now redo an entire harness to get it back up and running. But overall, like I said, the craftsmanship, well, kind of good. It's just emulated junk. And though I only paid $550 for a working cocktail, and there's probably plenty of people who would do the same thing, it is not at all what we needed. And now it's just taking up space, and the odds of us finding a Robby Roto PCB, pretty slim. Especially in like the condition and quality that we need it to throw it on the floor without doing a ton of work for a game that's ultimately not going to be, definitely not the most played. And so yeah, we're gonna pull out this PCB, show it to you for the camera, do some gameplay, just kind of show you what Adventures of Robby Roto looks like on this cheap Game Elf. And honestly, I haven't played it very much, so I'm excited to get a little bit of playtime. we're gonna coin up this fake Robby Roto, and we're gonna maybe get a closer shot of some of the sounds, but you can kind of hear it. If I remember correctly, yeah, this one doesn't go right, and I didn't bother to diagnose it. And already you can probably see why this game did not set the world on fire. All right, so now I'm player 2. I kind of like how I'm player 1 and player 2 are. And guys, generally this is the right game code. It is just running at the wrong speed. See what happens if I hit magic. Oh, I think it just lets me run through. And this one won't go down. So guys, the build quality I was bragging about earlier or talking up, not so good. And I'm not gonna do a ton of work. But what I do want to focus on, and I'm going to be really quiet in a second, is just how awful the sounds are on this unit. So let's see how far I can make it without it right. Uh-oh. I'm in a lot of trouble. Good joysticks, though, on this. A lot of good parts, probably. But yeah, so if I had tested this, though, who knows what I would have thought, because I normally love games that have control problems, because that normally means we're saving a lot of money. Because no one likes to deal with broken games at the auction. And honestly, a $550 price here, not even that bad, given that it's a, I don't actually know how much a Game Elf costs. It could go for $50 or $200. I don't know. Uh-oh, I did it again. Here we go. Some exciting gameplay action. I don't know what that did. Uh-oh, I got a bomb. But I died. So guys, I have not figured out Robby Roto. It's kind of like a Dig Dug type game, kind of like a maze / digging game. Pretty cool, pretty fun, and I remember it fondly from the times that I've played it before. This one, with the control issues, little wonky. But yeah, so this is it. Our $550 knockoff Robby Roto. This is the biggest one we've ever been tricked on. All the other ones we had suspicions and we didn't pay very much at all. And we always knew we were going to do on parts. And this might be a fine parts deal, but it's not really what we're into anymore. We're trying to get good, rare, awesome games for the public, and we got duped. Okay, guys, pulled. This is not, as you might have guessed, a Robby Roto board. This is a Game Elf of some sort, and to be honest, guys, I'm not super familiar with these things. It has a little SD card here that says 138 and 1. So I assume that means it's a 138 and 1 game board. I'm going to plug it into the test bench. We're going to try to mess around with it, just get a little bit of info to wrap up this story. Here at the test bench, we got a cool little JAMA built by Josh here in the lab, kind of a JAMA test bed. Got a cool Wells Gardner actual arcade LCD, and look, we've got the Game Elf screen coming up, and I think, if I remember correctly from Robby Roto, it wanted me to hit test, and I think it's that button. I was looking at the cartridge before we plugged it in, so I think I'm about to get a test screen, or I broke it completely. I don't know. I still don't. All right, yeah, cool. So this is the test screen. You can kind of see it's got an input-output test, which doesn't really help. It would have helped on that one that had some broken controls. Kind of interesting. It has two things that say my cabinet type. I'm guessing you can switch which one you want to default. It was set to cocktail because it was on a cocktail arcade. Serial number, we got to check that out. All right, if anyone else recognizes this, let me know who put this in here. It does say 138 and 1 down there, so I wonder if the serial number is not pulled directly off the card. Now, here's what I'm actually going for, is the game settings. All right, so normal play, I guess let's see what the options were there. Oh, to config edit games or normal play. So I assume that if you set it to config edit games, it'll boot up and let you kind of mess around with which games are an option. Flip screen is off, which I would have thought it should have been on, but maybe it's just a general flip screen, not the flip screen with the cocktail is probably right. Free play was on, and game mode. So here's the big deal. Game mode was set to single game, so it was a dedicated boot into that one game. So our options are single game and all games. I'm going to go ahead and throw it to all games. Free browse, I think, just means you can look around the games without a coin. I'm going to say on. We're going to turn music on just for the heck of it. Stop timer, we'll leave off. And then I hit start to save. So let's see if I exit. Let's see if it works. Let's see if it takes me to a bunch of games list. Now, the only theory that if it doesn't, I guess maybe I could go into config edit. It's possible they have all the other games deleted. But here we go. So this is the game screen that I've seen before on a Game Elf with the cheesy music. But look, they have every other game deleted except Robby Roto. So even if it had booted up here, obviously we would have never bought it. But this is the interface for the Game Elf. Let me do one quick thing. I want to go into that config screen. and just see if I boot it up into config mode, if they left the games on here or if they deleted it. Now, again, I'm kind of just winging it. I assume on this card, if I plugged it into a computer, I'd see a bunch of ROM files, and it's just loading up a emulator, and you can put whatever ROMs on there you want. I don't know if that's true. I don't know if GameElf has some sort of copy protection on their illegal emulation, but and I assume GameElf is illegal because they all are. Here's a Pandora's Box 5. It's kind of a similar thing we found in another game. All right, so I'm going to go back to game settings. And what was it? Oh, I wanted to change this to config edit games. Just to kind of see what, I mean, if they have Robby Roto on there, who knows what else they have. All right, so we're going to exit. We're going to let it boot and see if that changed anything. If not, that'll probably be the end of the video. I did want to get that board out of there, look at it. So it's the 138-1 GameElf. I assume that's kind of an older model because like with this, so let's see, we got edit game list. You can edit game difficulty. So here we go. We can turn them all back on. So I don't know if this is going to be useful for anyone who watches our channel. I kind of hope not. But let's see here. I can show all. All right, I believe I've shown all games. So we are going to save and quit. All right, we're going to see what happens when it boots. Oh, it might still be stuck in edit, so I might reboot, and I might be able to hop in here. No, so let's see if I hit exit here, is it just going to keep taking me to the same? No, here we go. All right, guys, so if you ever happen to buy a Robby Roto with an emulated GameElf, and you're like, wow, it only has one game on it, I guess I just showed you how to play all these games. I really am conflicted on that. Let's see if there's anything extra bad on here. I mean, just a generic horizontal game list, it looks like. Got SBL, that's cool. Yeah, I mean, almost all gonna be junk emulation. Pac-Land. There's our Robby Roto. It was number 100. So we've got just all sorts of, these are definitely older games though, so you assume that the processor in here isn't quite what it, like on the Pandora's box is. And we got Tetris. So really quick, I'm going to go and turn on Ghosts and Goblins and see how bad, if I know how to work this. All right, so this is that loading screen we saw just after the boot normally when it was the single boot. All right, so it's booting up in the background, I guess. It lets me change the dip switches before playing, which all of this is actually cool if you're in your house. All right, so how it does is it actually uses a coin-up style coin. And here's the game. You can already, you probably can't pick it up, and this is obviously not how it's supposed to be played, but the sounds are scratchy and weird. You can see some sprite glitching even on this higher end LCD. But, you know, if you're trying to just play the game without care about how good it looks or anything, and obviously if you're at home, because guys, this is not a legal, they did not pay the rights for these games. So there you go, Ghosts and Goblins, GameElf, Robby Roto. I don't know, that's crazy. I've never messed around with one of those, and that's where we are. I will almost certainly be throwing this on eBay or throwing it away or maybe giving it back to the auction. But if you do happen to know the name of the owner, shoot me an email, Corey@freeplayinc.com. I'd love to talk to him. Otherwise, guys, that's it for this episode of, I don't even know, not Game of the Week? Can we call it that? Not Game of the Week. That was Robby Roto, deconstructed GameElf. And for now, we're signing off until next week.